Hey, welcome to Breakwood Carpentry. In today's video, I'm going to be finishing off the kids' room renovation. Last thing I have to do is hang wallpaper on this wall here above the board and batten wainscoting. The wallpaper I got is peel and stick. It's just got like a removable little back, just like a sticker does. So no crazy wall paste or anything weird. As far as tools that I'll be using, I have a tape measure, a really sharp snap knife. You want to make sure your knife is really sharp, and those ones tend to be the sharpest. I have a small torpedo level as well as a long 4-foot level, and then a straight edge to help me cut. And then I'm using a metal drywall knife because that's what I have. But you may want to use something plastic to smooth out the wallpaper, or else you risk cutting the wallpaper with the drywall knife. I've never used it before, so I'll let you know how it goes, if it seems like maybe it works fine or if plastic would be better. And then if you've watched my previous video, I put a wall liner on this wall. It used to be textured, and then I covered it in horizontal wall liner. And so that should give me a really good surface for the wallpaper to stick to. And that might be something that you want to do as well, depending on your situation and the quality of your walls. Right now I'm just marking out the wall. You want to make sure that you have level lines when you're hanging this. If it gets tilted at all, it can throw off the pattern, or it could cause it to look a little weird. So my first line up at the top over there, right up here, I have a little line. But that was so small that I wanted to draw another line. So I went out 54 inches, which is the width of 2 sheets of wallpaper. The width that I have is 27 inches for this wallpaper, so I just went out 2 width sizes over and drew a straight line down. That's gonna be my reference line for my first 2 sheets. So once I have those hung, everything else should just line up beside it. Now, before I just go cutting and hanging wallpaper, I need to make sure that I get the cutting right. So I'm gonna pre-cut all of the sheets, and you have to make sure that you orientate it properly. Let me show you what I mean. So for my first sheet, it's going to be factory edge on the left, as well as factory edge on the top, but I might overhang the top so I can cut it flush to the ceiling. But the top piece is 9 inches, so I cut this piece 10 inches long. And now for the next piece, you might be tempted to just unroll the sheet, measure out how long you need to cut it. But you want to make sure, depending on whatever pattern you have, that it lines up properly. My pattern repeats every 24 inches or so. I have to make sure that the edge of this piece lines up with the edge of this. If I was just to measure down from this wall here, the next sheet's supposed to be about 55 inches. So if I just measure 55 and cut it, and then line this up, it wouldn't line up with the pattern that they have. This piece is supposed to line up right here, where this little thing is here. That's supposed to be the end of the little river and the corner of the bridge. So I need to make sure when I measure that I'm measuring from this point down and not from the very top. This is going to be waist up here, this 8-inch section. So just keep that in mind depending on what kind of pattern you have. Alright, ready for the first piece. So this piece is small, so it will give me a good idea of how this is going to go, how hard or easy it will be. So your wall might have a full-size piece, so it might be a little more difficult, but it's definitely advised to have somebody to help you do this. You can do it on your own, that's what I'm going to be doing, but having a helper probably makes it a lot easier. So I have an exposed sticky edge. And then I want to put it up on the ceiling a little bit. I don't want it to be flush. This first piece I went ahead and freehand cut, But you'll see in the next pieces that I use the drywall knife as a straight edge so that I get a nice, neat, clean line. So I've got an outlet here, and because my wallpaper is white, I can see the shadow of the box. So I'm just going to dig in there and cut it. If you cut around outlets, be careful not to hit any wires or you don't want to electrocute yourself. And here I'm using the drywall knife as a guide like I was talking about. And it worked pretty well for this. A plastic one would probably work good as well, but this one seemed to work really well. So. I got this wallpaper from a company called Rifle Paper Company. I found them on the internet, and it turns out they actually happen to have a physical location right in my town. But I'll leave a link down to where I got the wallpaper so that you can see other designs that they have. They really have a lot of cool options, and this one turned out to be my favorite, but they have a ton of different options, and I'll leave that link down below. And as far as the drywall knife goes, it seemed to work absolutely fine for me. I didn't notice any risk of tearing the edge or poking into the drywall, or I mean the wallpaper at all. So if you do have a drywall knife sitting around, it probably will work just fine. This was a relatively new drywall knife, so it wasn't really rusted or dented or scratched anywhere. So there was little risk of it cutting into the wallpaper, but if you have an older drywall knife, it might not work that great. But this one seemed to work fine. If your wallpaper is thin, you might want to use plastic, but for this wallpaper, it was relatively thick, and the drywall knife worked just fine. This is definitely something I wish I had a helper with. Trying to line up the edge and roll out the back and make sure it all sticks perfectly, as well as getting all of the bubbles out, ended up being a little difficult. I had a lot of residual bubbles, but I was able to get most of them out. But there were some that kept reappearing, and I would come back the next day and continue to just try and push them out. But if I had two people, it probably would have went on a lot smoother. So here's the final product with the wainscoting and the wallpaper. Turned out pretty good. I'm pretty happy with the way that it looks. Trying to line up the seams was the hardest part without creating a whole lot of bubbles, because if you create too many bubbles, when you try and get the bubble out, it ends up creating a little mark like that. This was the only major one that I had, and it sort of blends in. Can't really tell. Everything else turned out good, and my son seems to like it. Right, buddy? What do you think, buddy? You like it? Gideon, do you like the wall? Oh, you want to go in the closet? All right, Gideon, say bye. Bye. Thanks for watching.